House announces deadline for return of government vehicles by appointees. The Office of the President has issued a clear directive to all government appointees to return official vehicles in their possession by January 3, 2025. The directive, which reiterates the policy on the acquisition of government vehicles, comes as the current administration approaches the end of its term. In a release issued by the Communications Directorate of Jubilee House, the President's office reminded outgoing ministers, deputy ministers, regional ministers, special assistants, special aides to the President and Vice President, as well as other political appointees, of the established rules regarding the use of government vehicles. All government vehicles in the possession of these appointees must be returned to the Chief Director of the relevant ministries no later than Friday, 3rd January 2025, the statement read. The release also clarified the directive applies to all ministers of state, deputy ministers, regional ministers, special assistants, special aides, and other political appointees, including those serving on statutory boards and corporations. The Office of the President has called on all affected appointees to cooperate in adhering to this important measure as the current administration transitions. President Akufo-Addo says he's committed to ensuring that President-elect John Mahama experiences a seamless transition into office. According to him, this process must be undertaken in a manner that protects the interest of Ghanaians. He said this ahead of a meeting at the Jubilee House on Wednesday, bordering on the inauguration of a joint transitional team on the back of Mr. Mahama's electoral victory. The President told journalists that this preliminary meeting was to assure him of my full support and that my government over the transitional process to make sure that this administration takes off in the best of conditions.
As a functioning, effective, democratic state which respects the will of the people, which respects human rights and the rule of law, and where we are all secure in our daily lives. We've spoken a little bit about the issues that have occurred, the seeming lawlessness that has taken place over the thing, and I express my happiness at his intervention yesterday in speaking to the country about what was going on, and the reinforcing of the authority of the state to make sure that these matters are dealt with. So this is the reason why he's here, and I thought we should give you a brief outcome of the visit. It has been a very warm and constructive feeling. The President and I have known each other for nearly 20 years. Yes. We met in Parliament in 1997 and have remained good friends ever since. So that's what has happened. Mr. President, thank you. Elect, march forward as a functioning.
Meanwhile, President-elect John Mahama has expressed his appreciation for the warm reception he received from President Nana Akufo-Addo following his visit to the Jubilee House for the commencement of transitioning. He accepted the President's assurances of supporting him and his team through the transitioning process, adding that his team looks forward to the promised cooperation in due course. He further expresses optimism about the transition process and the potential for continued collaboration. On Tuesday, Mr. Mahama announced a 10-member transition team tasked with overseeing the smooth transfer of power from the outgoing administration. Subsequently, President Akufo-Addo also appointed some persons to constitute the government side of the transition team.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. As I said when I spoke after the declaration of results, I mentioned that His Excellency the President had given me a call to congratulate me, and so I had the opportunity to thank him this morning for being that gracious to give me that call. We had a very cordial meeting. At the time he called, he suggested 11 a.m. this morning to have the preliminary meeting towards setting up the transitional team, and that meeting has just ended. It was very cordial, and I think we were very happy to be together. Mr. President has given me a brief on the security situation, both internal and external, and also a short brief on issues to do with the economy. Of course, the transitional teams will drill down further into these matters, but I am happy at the assurance he's giving us that we're going to work together in the interest of Ghana to ensure a seamless transition. And I believe that even after that transition, it will be necessary for us to continue to keep a channel of communication so that Ghana's democratic credentials are consolidated and we all work together in the national interest. And so I want to thank him for his time and to assure him that on our side, we are very happy to work together, and we'll look forward to the successful work of the Joint Transitional Team. I thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
President-elect John Dramani Mahama has reassured Ghanaians of the strength and stability of the nation's democracy following the recent elections. In a Facebook post on Wednesday, December 11th, following his meeting with President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House in Accra, Mahama highlighted the successful electoral process and the importance of bipartisan cooperation in further strengthening Ghana's democratic credentials. Democracy and Ghana are the winners following the electoral process. Despite all the anxieties people had ahead of the election and voting day, Ghana has done it again. We can be sure that our democracy is safe, and by working together across bipartisan lines, we can continue to deepen and consolidate it, Mahama stated. Well, let's head straight and take a look at the various teams that are actually involved in the whole transition process when it comes to governance. This is the team, and we actually have Godfred Yeboah-Dame. He happens to be the Attorney General. We also have Honorable Oseche Mensah Bonsu. He's responsible for presidential affairs. This whole team is from the government side. We have Honorable Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. He's a Minister for Finance. We have Honorable Henry Korte, the Minister for Interior. We also have Honorable Dominic Nitiwul. He is the Minister for Defense. We have Honorable Shelley Ayoko Botry. She's the Minister for Foreign Affairs. We have Honorable Martin Ajay Mensah Kosa. He's the Minister for Local Government. And finally, Honorable Albert Kandapa. He happens to be the Minister for National Security. So this is actually coming from the government side. You realize that yesterday, John Dramani Mahama released his list. He gave out the members, the team people who are going to be responsible for the transition for his side. And this is what the president gave out. This was coming from the Jubilee House. So as you can see on your screens, this is coming from John Dramani Mahama's transition team. And the people, the Honorable Julius Deborah, he's a co-chairperson. And we have Honorable Asiedu Nketia, he's a member. Honorable Fifi Fiavi Kwete, he's also a member. Dr. Callistus Mahama, he's a member and the secretary to the transition team. We have Dr. Valeria Sawyer, she's a member. We have Professor Kwamena Ahoy, he's also the co-chairperson. We have Honorable Dr. Kaisel Ato Forsing, he's also a member of the transition team. Honorable Mahama Ayariga, a member. We have Honorable Gosi Tano, also a member, and we have Dr. Edward Omane, who is also a member. So we've actually seen both teams for both sides, and basically the teams are to ensure that there's smooth transition. And they were launched today. You actually listened to some of the stories we spoke about, what they had to say after the teams were launched or inaugurated today. So these teams are responsible for having a smooth transition from one government to the other. We have joining us on the phone a local governance expert, Dr. Richard Fiadomon. He's going to have a conversation with us on this. Good evening, Doc. Welcome to ABC Prime. Good evening, Doc. Welcome to ABC Prime. Doc, if you can hear me. Doc, if you can hear me, good evening. Welcome to ABC Prime. Your background is a bit noisy. If you could please move to somewhere a little less noisy. We'll definitely try and establish contact with Dr. Richard Fiadomo to have a conversation on this. So we'll definitely try and have him. But like you saw earlier on the graphics, these are the teams that are responsible to ensure that there's basically a smooth transition. So it's like a handing over from one team to the other. A new team is coming in to take over to handle affairs, to take over the governance. So then the current team in place will have to ensure that from handing over notes to whatever, bring them up to speed, let them know where everything is, where what is, so they understand. So when everybody comes on board, they can just hit the ground running and everything is where it's supposed to be. We've been joined by Dr. Richard Fiadomo. He's a local governance expert and we're going to have a conversation on this. Good evening, Doc. You're welcome to ABC Prime.
Thank you very much and greetings to all your listeners.
I want to find out, what does the transition look like at the local government level?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that number one is a constitutional provision and also an act of parliament to ensure that we get a smooth transition. So I want to say that so far so good. I think today we also the president inaugurating the transitional team or the committee. So I think that everything is going according to plan. What happened today was largely ceremonial. They are now to go into a look into the book, and so that they can know the true state of the nation, so that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama can take over come January 7th.
On the national level, these teams are appointed by both sides, and this is for the national level. But coming down to the local government level, what does transition of power look like?
Yeah, technically, what will happen at all the MMDCs by now would have handed over, and then that will go through to the local government minister, and that is why the local government minister is there. So that would have been done by now, and I think that it's good. The inauguration of the team today, the work is not ending today, so they are going to go through a process, and I believe that by the time President John Dramani Mahama is sworn in by 7th of January, every process would have been undergone, and then all the MMDCs would have also handed successfully too. But what is important is that, unlike the national level where John Mahama is taking over directly from Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in the case of the local government areas, it's going to take time for the president to nominate. So it remains to be seen whether His Excellency John Dramani Mahama will allow the current MMDCs to be at post until such a time that he will appoint his own MMDCs, as Professor John Evans Atta Mills did when he won power in 2008. Or we will see what happened during 2016 when the NPP won. Immediately Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was sworn in. He asked all the NDC MMDCs to vacate their post at the time when he had not appointed any MMDC. So I cannot speak for John Mahama on this issue. It remains to be seen what he will do after he has been sworn in, as far as the local government or the MMDCs are concerned.
Doc, I mean, we're seeing pockets of violence across, the nation post-election, and also we know that there are some MDCs and then, MMDCs that are actually being affected or being attacked here and there. Is this not affecting, or is this not going to affect the whole transition?
Yeah, for the violence that is happening across the country, it is most unfortunate, and we condemn it in no uncertain terms. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was elected for another 4 years, and his term of office will expire midnight 6th January 2024. The MMDCs were appointed by the president. unfortunately, the MMDC's position are not coterminous with that of the president. So even if Nana Addo is to leave office by midnight January 6th, the MMDC is continued to be at post. So it is very wrong for anybody to want to attack any MMDC. We leave their fate to the new president. When he comes to office and he thinks that he wants to have a smoother transition and he wants them to be at post until he appoints his own MMDCs, that's when John Dramani Mahama will decide. If he thinks that they should hand over to the coordinating directors as Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo did in 2017, that one too he will decide. So the MMDCs are not necessarily out of office because the NPP has lost election. So they are supposed to be at post until John Dramani Mahama determines their fate. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo today cannot even determine the fate of his own MMDC because he has lost election. So it is not fair. It is not proper. It is illegal for any person or group of persons to attack any MMDC because their government or their party has lost election. We condemn that in no uncertain terms, and we do not want that to happen.
Right, Doc, I want to find out, like you made mention of now, that, I mean, President-elect, when sworn in, can decide that he's going to retain these MMDCs, or like, I mean, President Nana Akufo-Addo did in 2016, he's also probably going to ask them to vacate their post, and then he would bring in his own set of people. Now, if he's going to more like ask them to vacate their post, will this not in a way truncate smooth governance system?
Oh, under normal circumstance, it shouldn't have happened. But if it does happen, it will not create any problem. Because you see, the coordinating directors, the assemblies are supposed to be in perpetuity. So the absence of a chief executive will not grind any assembly to a halt. I'm sure the president would nominate or appoint somebody who will be responsible for the local government ministry until he gets a minister to occupy that position. So if the chief executives are asked, as Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo did, to hand over to the coordinating directors, the local government system will not grind to a halt. If it did not grind to a halt in 2017, it will not grind to a halt in 2025. So for me, that one is at the discretion of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. That one, it is his discretion, so I cannot tell him what he has to do. But I can tell you on authority that if he asks them to leave, the assemblies will not grant to a halt because there's a precedent that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo also did a similar thing. So, yes, if he allows them to stay like Atame's did, the assemblies will continue to exist. If he asks them to go like Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo did, the assemblies will not grind to a halt. So clearly, I do not think that there's any crisis or there's any effect on the local governance system should he take any of the options which is purely at his discretion.
Thank you so much for actually be engaging with local governance expert Dr. Richard Fiadomo to actually look at the whole transition that is to take place. Don't forget the team was officially launched today. Still on post-election issues, the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Justin Frimpong Kodia, has called on civil society organizations and the Peace Council to pressure President-elect John Mahama to rein in supporters of the National Democratic Congress. This comes amid reports of post-election violence and hooliganism by some supporters of the NDC across the country. Speaking at a press conference at the NPP headquarters in Accra on December 11, 2024, Mr. Kodia alleged that NDC supporters have targeted the homes of NPP members and caused disturbances in some areas following their party's victory in the general elections. The NPP General Secretary also called on the Inspector General of Police to intervene and ensure that law and order are maintained in the affected areas. The NPP's appeal comes amidst growing concerns over reports of vandalism and harassment allegedly linked to the election aftermath.
We are equally calling on the National Peace Council, National House of Chiefs, Christian Council of Ghana, Catholic Bishop Conference, our National Chief Imam, organized labor, civil society organizations, the diplomatic community, to, as a matter of agency and for the sake of our cherished and enviable record as a country that has for over 32 years practiced multi-party democracy, to come out and condemn the lawlessness from the NDC. And we call on the president-elect, Mr. John Dramani Mahama, to call his people to order and also allow the Electoral Commission to do its job. At the end of the day, that is the beauty of democracy. You can't have it all. Is it the case that the NDC is telling us that we are not needed in the next parliament? What kind of...
Meanwhile, the majority leader of the outgoing parliament, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, at the press conference called on the leadership of the NDC to immediately rein in their supporters, as these actions are detrimental to democracy. He alleged that the NDC thugs were threatening the lives of various NPP parliamentary candidates, including himself, an action he said does not improve democracy. Mr. Afenyo-Markin also alleged that the NDC is behind the disturbances, and in some cases, party bigwigs are providing resources to the thugs to continue their actions, moving from one institution to another.
In Ablekumanov, for instance, the parliamentary candidate there is under siege. Yesterday, she had a sleepless night. All manner of persons were at her residence in search of pink sheets. The question is, why is the NDC so interested in destroying evidence? Why are they interested in capturing pink sheets to destroy them and set them ablaze? This woman, Madame Ekuya Afriye, had to run for her life. It took the timely intervention of the police. I would want to call on His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to stop his people, to speak to his party people. This is not democracy. This is not the democracy we've all worked hard for. The hypocrisy is becoming too clear day in, day out. All of us are being threatened. In my own constituency, for instance, they have now come out with a lie, and unfortunately some media personnel are following such lie to the extent that, to the effect that a certain NDC constituency vice chairman can...
Member of Parliament for the Nsawam Aduajiri constituency, Frank Anodompre, has called on the Ghana Police Service to investigate the Nsawam shooting incident that has left one person hospitalized. Dompre denied any involvement in the shooting, stating that he had never wielded a gun before. Speaking at a press conference at the Nsawam Aduajiri New Patriotic Party office, Dompre claimed the internal party coalition exhibited that they won the parliamentary election. He urged the National Democratic Congress Communications Officer Sami Jaimfi to show maturity in politics and stop spreading lies about him.
If they had said that, okay, I was holding a catapult because when I was young, I used to use catapults and then we go bird hunting. Probably if they had said that I had catapult, I would have said that probably that was true. But even that night, there were no birds around, so I could not hunt for birds. So that allegation is false. It's totally false. I never showed gun. I am a confident person. I went into the hall to face them. Even though they were wielding knives and all that, I came there and nobody could touch me. And it's the cowardice of them. It was when I was departing the hall, that was when they started throwing stones and missiles at me. I want to invite the leadership of the Ghana Police Service to conduct an investigation, thorough investigation to this matter, because I am totally innocent. And I want to advise the young man, Samir Jaimfi, is a young man growing up. He should get mature. Politics is not just about getting microphones and come and hell out and put out allegations.
Meanwhile, Frank Anodompre also called on President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to halt the transition process until all constituency seats are duly declared. He further urged the president-elect to call his party members to order.
The due winners of various constituencies, i.e. Insawama, Dreji, Akwetia, Suhum, and then of course Fantiapa North. Let me appeal to the outgoing president, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. We know he has set in motion a transition process. As a matter of course, we want to appeal to the president. And mind you, he's still the president. Yes. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So the transition process should be halted. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo should halt the transition process. And John Dramani Mahama, President-elect, must show same equity, must speak to his people, and we must ensure that all the other outstanding seats are declared duly by the EC before the transition process goes on. Because we are convinced that the due winners.
We've been joined currently by the president of the Catholic Bishop Conference, Most Reverend Matthew Kwesi Gyamfi, to have a conversation on this. Good evening, Rev. You're welcome to ABC Prime.
Good evening, ma'am. I thank the invitation.
What is the role of the Catholic Church in addressing post-election violence and promoting reconciliation?
Well, our role has always been to appeal to the moral consciences of all Ghanaians, of all the security agents, and the stakeholders at play on the issue at stake.
And how can religious leaders advocate for peace while holding political leaders accountable for their actions or inactions?
When we appeal for peace, we do not appeal only to our followers, because this peace or whatever we are talking about has to do with the whole nation. So we appeal also to the consciences and to political leaders. And we look at what their role is, and their role is not different from the role that we are playing. Theirs is to ensure that there is peace amongst the people and in the country that they want to govern, that they want to rule. And come to think about it, they have become leaders to bring peace to the people. And so we also remind them of the onerous responsibility that have been placed on their shoulders to lead the people into peace, and the peace gives birth to development and growth and everything. Without peace, they cannot govern the country.
Rev, I want to find out, we are aware that the Peace Pact was signed before, and both parties, all parties actually, it was to ensure that peace was held before, during, and after the elections. How can we actually hold to account the political leaders that, you know, to this Peace Pact that was signed, currently looking at all the pockets of violence that is taking place across the country post-elections?
Yeah, you remember that I commented that the Peace Pact that the leaders signed over there, they represent the people. And the Peace Pact, in that respect, they have signed it on behalf of their followers. So the followers are also obliged to keep to the pact. And they have a responsibility to remind their followers of the Peace Pact that they have. And since the people also are party to the Peace Pact, they are also expected to ensure and to promote peace. The people, everybody, it's not leaders only, but every Ghanaian needs peace. and they should therefore fight for peace.
Definitely. Mosref, before I finally let you go, looking at all that is happening, what do you believe is the way forward?
Well, what is happening that we have pockets of lawlessness here and there. And those things, I would say strictly, are not part of the peaceful, relatively peaceful election that we have had on the day of election. Look, the NPP aspirant, Dr. Bawumia, has conceded and has congratulated NDC aspirant and currently the president-elect. It's beautiful. And the people voted peacefully. And we have spoken. And the Electoral Commission has spoken. That is it. Now, the pockets of violence and lawlessness that is going here and there are the result of criminals, thieves, and therefore the security agents should deal with them accordingly. You know, you cannot say that you are NDC or MPP, whether because you lost or because you have won, then you burn property, you destroy state property, you harm individuals here and there. What has that got to do with elections? And it is not their leaders who have told them to do that. And who are they? And that is why the security agents know that whoever burns, whoever destroys, whoever steals, ordinarily in this country, that person is arrested and prosecuted and appropriate punishment administered. And that is what the security agents are doing. And we urge them to continue and to bring the law to bear. They should not rest at all. And we have received information from them that they are really working hard. And they have arrested many, many people. And they are going over the video and all of this of where this violence is occurred. And they are going to arrest religiously all these people and place them behind bars as they have done some. And the law will apply. And we do not expect any political party or anybody to be able to say they belong to my party, NPP or NDC, and therefore they should be released. These people will go through the law, the procedure, and the proper punishment administered to them. And we are all watching. And we are looking at looking up to the security agents to protect Ghanaians. That is their duty. We don't care what party or who did this or that. Once the criminal act, dangerous one, and the laws against those activities, those people should be punished. And we are holding the security agents responsible.
Definitely. Thank you so much for actually been speaking with Most Reverend Matthew Kwesi Gyamfi. He happens to be the president of the Catholic Bishop Conference. But we're not done with this conversation. Don't forget, we're still trying to engage with a security analyst on this, because post-election violence, pockets of it across the nation, definitely is not something you want to be seeing after a good election. And if you're looking at peace during the election, definitely peace after the election is very, very important. But looking at all the vandalism to the point of arson, it's not something that we're actually looking at. It's not something we want. So we need to look at what is happening. I mean, people have lost their lives in this election. We also have some fatalities, casualties. It's not something that we're looking at. We're definitely being joined on Zoom by on phone by security analyst Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired. Good evening, Colonel. You're welcome to ABC Prime.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Colonel, I want to find out, what do you make on the attack on the military?
Attack on military.
Post-election.
At what place?
We saw a video where we've seen, some personnel go and attack some security personnel at Ghana Gas when we saw them actually trying to invade the premises.
Well, I've not seen the footage. I've only heard it discussed in main media. But the whole narrative is that since 2000, our political transitions or democratic transitions between major political parties, i.e. from to NPP 2000, or if you like 2001, then from NPP to NDC in 2009, of course we come to 2017, and now 2024-25. These transitions have been characterized by two narratives. One side of the narrative is that those in power who are exiting try to amass as much of government property as possible before leaving office. That includes auctioning vehicles. It includes distributing government, whatever, people driving government vehicles into their garages, and so on and so forth. Then the other side is where the incoming administration or the members of the incoming administration or the foot soldiers either attempt to stop that or themselves go ahead to say, look, we are the incoming government, we'll take over assembly toilets, we'll take over poll booths, we'll take over lorry stations managed by assembly, whatever it is, you know. So that is what is playing out. What is happening is that over the 32 years, we have failed as a nation, as a people, to learn that we have developed a subculture that makes political transitions or democratic transitions violent. As I've tried to explain, in this current situation, there were two parallel. In fact, during all elections, there have been two parallel security architectures. You have the regular one, constitutionally established, devolving on the president as a commander-in-chief, with all the institutions like national security, like police, like armed forces, and you name it. Then, of course, you have the members of the executive, like Minister of Interior, Minister of Defense, and so on. Now, that regular security architecture runs 24/7, whether there are elections or not. But for elections, we have crafted this so-called election security task force. So, between the two, as we're transitioning from the end of elections, there should have been some mechanisms. There should have been estimates, assessments, led by intelligence, by the national security architecture. Then based on practice, events, the experiences that we've gone through, that there is likely to be trouble. And therefore, the government should have put in place measures to counter any form of looting state property, whether by the outgoing government or by the incoming administration. Now, that has not happened. Now, you and I have seen anecdotes. The one that you mentioned, Ghana Gas, has been purported in the media to mean NDC party full soldiers. That may not necessarily be the case. One narrative that I've heard in the media is that the members or full soldiers of the outgoing administration went to Ghana Gas and went to the port and then went to passport office to say that give us jobs before you leave. You see, but then in the media it's turned out to be that NDC members went there. However, there are instances where some NDC members had information that properties belonging to the state, like the grid machines, were being carted away on flatbeds by some foreigners. So they had gone in to stop anybody from moving those grid machines anywhere. Then we have seen the evidence around, or the episode around, what do you call it, fertilizers, iron rods, cement, and so on, at some district assemblies or whatever, which were being loaded away. So NDC full soldiers had gone in there, invited the police to stop the loot before the actual transition goes over. This narrative, or these narratives, simply show that we as a people, with our governments, with all the institutions, have failed to make our democratic transitions peaceful. You see, and now the government, which has the executive authority, or members of the government, are calling on the incoming president, who has no powers whatsoever. So, as the case is turning out now, it is not only NDC members who are causing trouble, it is also NPP members. So, if Mahama speaks, or General Mosquito speaks, or Sami Jenfi speaks, it's not going to go anywhere. And I've seen a presser where, let me call him the majority leader for the purposes of whatever, and the executive secretary,
I quickly want to find out, is halting the transition process until all constituency disputes are resolved a viable approach to actually maintaining peace?
I've lost you. I cannot hear you.
If you can hear me, I was saying due to time constraints, I want to find out if halting the transition process until all constituency disputes are resolved, whether it's a viable approach to maintaining peace currently.
I don't think the question has been posed in the right context. The EC has explained that based on the certified results, presidential, John Mahama has won 56.55 or 33 or whatever it is. That is a reality. It has nothing to do with parliament. It is simply that there is a new president-elect. So the outstanding results, let's make them 9, let's make them 13, which are constituency parliamentary results, have nothing to do with the presidential. Be it as it may, if we argue that the 9 results are in abeyance, in dispute, the remaining ones show that the NDC has a lead, and the NDC is going to be the new majority in the incoming 9 for whatever parliament. So the transition must go on. The transition is based on transferring power from one executive to the other executive. And parliament can be constituted based on the certified results, leaving the other vacancies until they are resolved. That transition is provided for, as the president and the incoming said, by an act of law. It must take place. And today they have initiated a process for the transition to take place. These results that are being disputed, when they are resolved, will only make it possible for some parliamentary candidates to go to parliament. After all, over the past 4 years, we have operated our parliament without representation from one constituency, haven't we? 4 years. So we have got a precedent that parliament can pass, although not all representatives can be parliament. But I think we must know that before, the 7th of January next year, these outstanding issues would have been resolved. My understanding of the law, based on what people have explained, is that once elections are certified at the ballot station, you cannot ask for a recount at the constituency level. However, you can ask for a recount at the ballot station 2 times. On the second occasion, the presiding officer can agree or disagree. If he or she disagrees for a second recount, then it is elevated to the constituency level. And the returning officer at the constituency level will then ask for a recount.
Definitely.
So, all the results that are being declared at the constituency level, whether people disagree or not, the only option left is to go to court and contest the declarations at the constituency level in court. There is no provision in law for some parliamentary candidates to say that let's do a recount at constituency level. That's
Thank you so much, Colonel. We've actually been engaging with Colonel Festus Aboagye. Unfortunately, due to time, we'll definitely have to bring the conversation to an end here. You're still watching ABC Prime. Let's head straight into the world of business. Provisional figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service show that Ghana's economy grew by 7.2% in the third quarter of 2024, marking a strong recovery from the 2.2% growth recorded during the same period in 2023. This is the country's best economic performance since the pre-pandemic period, with the last comparable growth being a 9.1% expansion in the second quarter of 2019.
The third quarter of 2023. Discounting the effect of price changes, the economy in constant terms, discounting the effect of oil, stood at 45.5 billion Ghana cedis relative to 42.3 billion Ghana cedis in constant terms when the effect of oil has been discounted. This means that on a year-on-year basis, discounting the effect of oil, the economy grew by 7.7% relative to 2.4% non-oil GDP growth rate that was recorded in the third quarter of 2023. GDP at basic prices stood at 247.8 billion Ghana cedis. Disaggregating GDP at basic prices from a sectoral perspective, the services sector continues to retain its dominance with over 2/5 of the overall GDP contribution, specifically contributing 42.9% of the 247.8 billion GDP at basic prices that was recorded for the third quarter of 2024. The industry sector is contributing at about a third, specifically 32.6%, and the agriculture sector contributing about a quarter, specifically 24.5%, indicating that GDP oil estimate in current terms for the third quarter of specifically 32.6%, and the agriculture sector contributing about a quarter, specifically 24.5%, indicating that GDP oil estimate in current terms for the third quarter of 2024 stood at 270 billion Ghana cedis that was recorded for the same time period in the third quarter of 2023. Discounting the effect of price changes, the economy in constant terms, discounting the effect of oil, stood at 45.5 billion Ghana cedis relative to 42.3 billion Ghana cedis in constant terms when the effect of oil has been discounted. This means that on a year-on-year basis, discounting the effect of oil, the economy grew by 7.7% relative to 2.4%.
4 individuals have been apprehended by the Ghana Police Service for allegedly stealing building materials designated for the Agenda 111 hospital project at Ewutu-Breku in the Central Region. The arrest, carried out on Tuesday, December 10, 2024, was made possible through collaboration between the police and community members. According to a police statement, the suspects were caught after intercepting a manned diesel truck with registration number GT8715Z, driven by one of the suspects, Kwabena Ayamba. The truck was found loaded with assorted building materials. Preliminary investigations revealed that the suspect claimed to have been contracted by the project contractor to transport the materials to Tema. Efforts are also underway to apprehend the contractor allegedly involved in the incident. Now, this case adds to a series of arrests, bringing the total number of individuals detained in connection with post-election disturbances and related incidents to 110. We're still on local stories. Agric Director for Lower Manya Krobo, Godswill Komla Glanti, has been beaten allegedly by some NDC thugs who later locked up officers of fertilizer warehouses. We'll try and reach with some of our correspondents to engage directly on this issue. We'll also try and engage with the affected persons, which is the Agric Director for Lower Manya Krobo, Godswill Komla Glanti, shortly to throw more light on the issue. Let's head into the world of sports. FIFA has confirmed that the centenary edition of the FIFA World Cup in 2030 will be hosted across 6 countries, spanning 3 continents. Spain, Portugal, and Morocco have been selected as the primary host, while Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay will serve as centenary hosts, each organizing one match to honor the tournament's 100-year legacy. The event will kick off in South America, with Uruguay hosting the opening match in Montevideo, followed by games in Argentina and Paraguay. The remainder of the tournament will unfold across Europe and Africa, with Spain expected to host the grand finale at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium in Madrid. This unique hosting arrangement pays homage to the inaugural World Cup held in Uruguay in 1930, making it a historic celebration of the tournament's global reach. Meanwhile, FIFA has officially announced Saudi Arabia as the host nation for the 2034 World Cup. The decision, made without contest, cements the kingdom's growing influence in global football. Saudi Arabia, following Qatar's lead from 2022, becomes the second Middle Eastern country to host the tournament. The nation has pledged equitable treatment and improved conditions for workers involved in the event, aligning with its Vision 2030 development agenda. Massive investments in infrastructure and sports are expected to make the 2034 World Cup a landmark event in the region. Let's go and take some international stories. The The World Health Organization has reported a sharp increase in global malaria cases, rising by 11 million in 2023 to an estimated 263 million. Malaria deaths remain alarmingly high at 597,000, with African children under the age of 5 disproportionately affected. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who the World Health Organization Director General, stressed the preventable nature of malaria. He said, "No one should die of malaria, yet the disease continues to disproportionately harm people living in the African region, especially young children and pregnant women." Progress against malaria has stalled since 2015, with cases per 1,000 people at risk increasing from 58 to 60.4 by 2023, nearly triple the World Health Organization's target. Deaths per 100,000 people at risk remain over twice the target, underscoring the lack of sufficient advances. Key challenges include climate change, conflict displacement, drug and insecticide resistance, and a funding gap, with only $4 billion allocated in 2023, less than half of the required $8.3 billion. Despite setbacks, new tools like 2 vaccines and next-generation birds nets provide a glimmer of hope. Let's go take entertainment. Jamie Foxx has shared details of the medical emergency that left him hospitalized last year. In his newly released Netflix special, Jamie Foxx, What Had Happened Was. The actor revealed that in April 2023, while filming a movie in Atlanta, he suffered a brain bleed that resulted in a stroke. Foxx described the incident, saying he experienced a severe headache on April 11th and lost consciousness before receiving help. The Oscar-winning actor said he woke up weeks later, shocked to find himself in a wheelchair and unable to walk. Despite the grim prognosis that 2023 would be the most challenging year of his life, Foxx underwent rehabilitation in Chicago, shedding what he called his arrogant persona to focus on recovery. Foxx also expressed gratitude to his family for keeping his health struggles private during that time, shielding him from potential backlash or speculation online.